Ahoy, hoy, friends! Welcome to the Salon, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 4, The Worfining. Your eyes did not deceive you. I neglected to turn off the AC unit, so I needed another 20 seconds. Apologies for the repeat. You were not going insane. It was not a parallel universe. It's not a time loop. It is my apartment needing to be chilly because I need it to be chilly. There was a joke in there somewhere and I lost track. But anyway, how is everybody?
Good.
The one time we don't talk over each other is when I encourage people to.
Yeah, seriously. I just got back from a really great trip, seeing a bunch of friends last weekend.
Where'd you go?
People. I went to a place called Palm Springs. Never been there before.
Sounds gay.
Out there so it was fun.
Sounds problematic.
Sounds homosexual.
Yeah.
It was very homosexual. Yes. The four he/hims that you see on your screen plus Matt were in Palm Springs for the weekend. We missed everybody. Would have loved to have everyone there. The dogs had a fun time. The humans were stressed about it, mostly me. Tindy's new.
Great.
She's getting better.
It was great to meet all the dogs that are guest stars on the Salon every week in person. They're all amazing creatures. You guys were okay too, but the dogs,
Yeah.
It was mostly their trip.
Yeah, it was mostly theirs. Yeah.
Yeah, she was thriving with a backyard to run in. I have guilt now of having my dog be an apartment dog after seeing her just thrive with that giant yard to run in. And get over it. No, I'm kidding. I love you. She's off on the couch. Well, friends, it is the fourth in our Star Trek Deep Space Nine series, The More. So you guessed it. We're talking about season 4 of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But of course, before we can do that, we have to, of course, set an intention. Forever.
All right, Star friends. So, in honor of the Worf of it all, I thought it would be fun if we did a what if for our intention setter tonight. And so, what if instead of Worf, a different character from the Star Trek universe decided to make Deep Space Nine their home? So I just want to know who would be your pick. Who would be your character? In theory, this person should be someone who could conceivably be there. So, it would be very difficult for a character who has already died to show up on the station, or a character that we haven't met yet. But, there are people who are currently alive that we haven't met yet that would be fun. So maybe a Voyager character that starts off on DS9 and then travels off on Voyager, or another TNG character besides Worf. So for my what if this week, I thought it would be really fun and very useful for our friends on the station if maybe they got a counselor a little bit earlier than they end up getting one. So my pick is Deanna Troi. I think Deanna dropping in as a it's sort of the ultimate Trek fish out of water. Having a daughter, the fifth house, walking around that Cardassian monstrosity would just be a hoot and a holler, in my opinion. But she'd also be incredibly valuable to the crew and to the team. But I'm guessing she'd probably hang up that horrible blue dress, else she'd be confused for a Dabo girl. So that's my pick. Let's go around the room and we'll start with Ken.
So I'm going to do some timey-wimey stuff, kind of, sort of, and I'm going to say that Pelia would be a pretty cool person to be on Deep Space Nine. Moving on from Strange New Worlds and then showing up, Carol Kane showing up on Deep Space Nine. I think that she would have a blast, and I think it would be a lot of fun if she was chief engineer, if you will, of Deep Space Nine, working closely with, and at loggerheads at times, with Miles O'Brien. So I think it would be fun. So that's my choice.
I love that. I love that answer. She could be an engineer in an engineering place. Will, who's your what if?
It's a good. I'm gonna say something controversial yet brave. I'm gonna say Saavik. I would think it'd be really cool to have her back on DS9, and because we don't know too much about her per se, but it would be cool to have her as maybe replace, as much as we all loved him, Admiral Ross. Like if we had a character that was an established admiral come back, because she's still far younger than Spock, so she could feasibly be that character. But I just thought thinking when Ken was talking about, it would be funny when they do eventually update remastered DS9 if they just insert Pelia somewhere in an episode, because they could theoretically do it. That'd be really funny. Just have her walk around the station with some art or an orb or something. Be funny. But no, my thing would be Saavik.
I love it. Krista?
I have two. One name I can't remember. The first would be Guinan. I think she would be fun to play with. All of the peeps, and the other one just for the chaos of it, and the potential Odo Garrick. Who is I watched like maybe 6 episodes of Voyager. Who is the woman that ultimately backstabbed Chakotay?
Seska.
Seska.
Her.
That'd be fun.
Just for the pizza's here, just for the sheer chaos of it, just the element, drop her in there with Odo and Garrick and Ducat and Quark and let him play.
I not only love. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Fun fact: we do see Seska in Deep Space Nine. She's just not Seska. She's Sub Commander Rule.
I know.
Has that happened yet?
Odin isn't Odin, and Leah Brahms isn't Leah Brahms, and everybody just changed professions and names.
Everybody moves one character to the left. Yeah, Seska would be so much fun, but I also loved that you not only said Seska and we went, yes, Seska, and you went, yes, her. Like it was such a good, that was such a good description of the character, just her.
Because there was a visceral hate for, I just viscerally disliked her so much that she was fascinating. Like, I could not watch it. But then
breaking into replicators and making mushroom soup. Fearless leader.
I will also be brave. Not really. Ro Laren. I know they wanted Ro Laren. Michelle Forbes said no. And then we of course got Nana as Major Kira. My what if is in addition to, not instead of. I would love to see Ro Laren and Kira Nerys start very adversarial, because you know they would be butting heads. One got away, one didn't. One still suffered, but then got into Starfleet. Now the other one is just like, well, we welcomed him in and was pissed about it. That would have been a very interesting first season dynamic. And then she could, of course, be reassigned to Voyager and be the first officer there instead of Chakotay. Would have been much better. It's just my personal belief. But Ro Laren on Deep Space Nine and then Voyager would have been a really fun dynamic to see for sure. Great intention setter, Trevor. Great what if. I love a what if scenario. It looked like you were about to chime in again. Great. So, well, I love it. Queen of segues over here. I'm gonna move us on to our next segment. Ooh, I'm getting better at this. It's only we're only over a year into doing this. So it is the Star Trek Deep Space Nine Season 4 Thumb War. What is that? What does it mean? Great question. Let's get into it. That's right. It's a thumb war. You've seen it. Maybe you haven't. And in case you haven't, a quick explainer. My co-host Trevor is going to run through each of the episodes. He did not write these synopses. Some of them will be good. Some of them will be bad. Each week, it's a new fun surprise to see if it's actually accurate. We will discuss some episodes and then vote. A few episodes, I've went ahead and called through the list. We're going to just vote on them from our memory. We might have quick commentary on a few of those episodes, but we wanted to save the bulk of our time for episodes where it really moves a character forward, or it moves the show's overall arcs forward, or it's just a really fun episode that like there's a lot to talk about. So we want to have time for that. But there will be a couple of episodes we just vote on and then move on. Some that like one or three of us might have a quick line about, and then we'll move on. So we'll see how it goes. And goal of goals, as a reminder for my speakers, but also just as a fun little surprise for the audience here. We're gonna get this done in under 2 hours. So 8:30 p.m. Pacific. We're gonna see that self-destruct video or die trying. So let's get into it. Trevor, take it away.
Season 4, Episode 1 and 2, The Way of the Warrior, Part 1 and 2. I'm excited that our first episode has a horrible description. I'm very jazzed about this. So, in keeping with tradition, Lieutenant Commander Worf must choose between Starfleet and his heritage when the Klingon Empire withdraws from the Federation Peace Treaty. Kind of ignoring a bunch of other things that happen, including some sudden shifting of alliances with the Cardassians, and suddenly Gul Dukat is a friend, but is he? There's some interesting pairing offs during all of the tensions. Also, huge weapons upgrade for DS9, which is exciting to watch happen. A fantastic battle. The same stuntman getting blown up like 16 times. It's just an exciting episode. My personal take on this is that I really enjoyed the night that it aired, because it aired as a movie. It feels like a Deep Space Nine movie. When they break it into 2 parts, that means more commercials, which means they cut out a couple of scenes or trimmed some scenes, including some cool stuff between Kira and Dax, which is kind of annoying because their friendship is one of the most entertaining things on DS9, in my opinion, that doesn't get highlighted enough. But yes, some great action and a brand new character, sort of, in Worf, transitioning over as the new strategic operations officer of Deep Space Nine. Who was the old one? It doesn't matter because there probably wasn't one. Thoughts, feelings, comments? Have at it, group.
Let's go to Krista, then Will, then Ken.
I really, the first, I would say 14 episodes of this season, I was kind of in and out. They didn't really grab me all that much, but what I did get out of this one was the introduction of Worf indicated to me that there was going to be a lot more Klingon centric storylines for the rest of the season. And no, and sorry, and it sort of set the tone for what a lot of the episodes for the whole season were going to be. And for me, I would describe it as kind of the captivity of family and commitment to family and the kind of consequences that happen. And you see it really clearly in The Visitor, but throughout the episodes following, there's always some kind of sibling, family, the unspoken contract that you have with people that you care about that must manifest in helping them, being with them. And that is a little bit of a captive situation. So that's really all I have to say about that. Next.
Yeah, it's a good episode. I mean, like, as like if we, like Trev said, this is like a DS9 movie. I think it's really it's an interesting watch. I do get a little tired of Worf always wanting to leave Starfleet. Like, we've treaded this a few times in TNG, and then we kind of continue it with this a little bit. The battle scene, probably the coolest part of it. And I don't remember so many of the shots of like the torpedoes flying through the air, and like they tried a few kind of new and different things, especially with the battle and all the stuff that they kind of did. It's a good episode. Worf is an interesting choice to kind of bring onto the show. But I feel like it treads a lot of the same stuff we've dealt with in TNG with the Klingons and with Worf specifically, but it does it so well, it's kind of hard to ignore. But drag her. It's fine. I'll say that. It's a good episode. I don't know if it goes anywhere, but it's fine. He always wants to leave. He's like, "Oh, I'm leaving." I'm like, "Okay, fine." Like it's a little
It's Facebook 2014. Like, I'm leaving in 3 weeks.
Yeah,
I'm leaving in 14 days.
Yeah, it's like
Just
he's
do it.
searching for attention. Like, just do it, dude. Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Did I say it was fine? It's fine.
You mentioned it.
So it looks like the 4th season of these shows are where they have to try to infuse new blood, right? So you infuse Worf and the Klingons into Deep Space Nine. And of course, the 4th season of Voyager is when you infuse the Borg at 7 of 9. So it's like these shows need some sort of pick-me-up, or is perceived to need some sort of pick-me-up at this point. Even TNG had the best of both worlds happening between 3 and 4, right? So I thought this was an interesting episode. I remember watching it the day it came out too, and they of course had a huge campaign that Michael Dorn was switching over. Of course, this is after Generations, and the line about "sorry, what happened to the Enterprise" that Cisco tosses off to Worf had a lot of emotion to it. I think that they were trying to take this in a different direction. I also think that they were, as we talked about before, they were hoping to sort of jump more into the Dominion War quicker, and they had to defer all that because now they had Worf and they had to, refocus on the Klingons. I thought that there looked like there was some tension. I know there was some behind the scenes tension a bit with Worf coming on, and some of the Deep Space Nine actors were like, "Well, what are you doing? You don't think we can carry this without bringing on a TNG person?" And I think some of that sort of showed up a bit in the way these scripts were written, and they sort of started wedging Worf in there. To Krista's point, Worf just sort of shows up and has nothing to do. So I think for whatever reason, they weren't trusting. They should have trusted their writers. They should have trusted the direction a bit. And I think Michael Dorn was sort of forced upon them. And it shows. And while it was a good episode and it had a lot of action, a lot of good effects, it was nice to see the Klingons. And I don't know if it was a good idea, dramatically to sort of break the Starfleet Klingon dynamic that was such an important part of TNG. And of course was something the Organians had said back in TOS, which should give us a TOS alert. So there you go. That's my comments.
It took me a second to find it.
I definitely clocked it.
I have a lot of banners. So I am on record as a known Worf hater. And again, this is an in-universe criticism. Michael Dorn is fantastic. He plays the role incredibly well. I think, ironically, Worf simultaneously has no depth, yet adds a lot of depth to the trek in which we find him. Deep Space Nine, I think, would have been fine without the character. We were just talking last week about what a banger season 3 was. I'm wondering if it's sort of like an Enterprise situation where their season 2 really haunted them because it didn't do well in the ratings. They changed some things in season 3 and the ratings ticked up, but it didn't tick up fast enough to get them to avoid making a bigger change like this, taking a bigger swing. That said, I do think Worf is an interesting element added into the show. This episode in particular, we get some fun stuff with it. It's sort of like a pilot in a way of he is being introduced to all of the characters that we already know and seeing some fun interactions. The first hint of his future relationship is in this episode. Spoilers, sorry, Krista, a little bit. Although I think that's a big one that you're probably already aware of. Yeah, you're like, wait a minute. Worf has relationships? Yes, and an actual good one that
Well,
actually
they make it obvious though. It's not
Yeah.
like it's not a state secret. I mean, they make it obvious in the first couple of episodes that that's the direction they're going to go. So I'm old, so I just see that shit right away. Oh, I see.
And like Joanne is saying in the chat, we got some really interesting foreshadowing to how Cisco is in wartime. So lots of fun stuff happening in this episode. And with that, I think we should see those thumbs. The Way of the Warrior. Parts 1 and 2. One and 2.
Unanimous on our first episode.
Oh.
For those of you who are watching for the first time, that won't hold. Episode
Sure won't.
Season 4,
Sure won't.
episode 3, The Visitor. Cisco's disappearance during a rare wormhole inversion. I didn't say it. I didn't make. I'm just reading what it says on the screen. During a rare wormhole inversion, causes his son Jake to pursue an obsessive, lifelong search for his father. It's reasonably accurate. It does a fun little. It kind of neglects the alternate universe of it all, but definitely a lot of Jake and Ben heavy stuff, father son stuff, which is fantastic. Though I've always said what makes me sad about this episode is that it's one of the best Jake episodes that exists, and Sirach Lofton is barely in it. So that makes me a little sad. But what do you guys think?
Let's go in reverse order this time.
So I think this was a good episode. I agree. I mean, Tony Todd is fantastic as Jake, and it is sorry that Sirach is not in it because it is it's a very cool Jake episode. But if you stand it up against all of these sort of, again, timey-wimey kind of episodes of which Star Trek has many, this is a good one, but it's certainly not the best one. I think that there are stronger episodes than this for sure. It's also definitely an episode that sort of delves us into the future, and we see, sort of the sadness. It's an off-format episode in the sense that there's a lot of sadness to it. It's a depressing episode, although it does resonate. It resonates with me again because a lot of people thought that. People accused me of my life being paralyzed after my father died for a long time, and so that resonated with me. Especially when Cisco's ghost said, "You got to move on with your life. You got to move on with your life." So that struck some nerves with me, the heartstrings.
Yeah, I'm gonna say something controversial. I found the episode to be a little overly sentimental, and it would, no surprise here, from me at least, but I thought it was brilliantly written. It's an excellent example of what Star Trek's capable of doing while taking something very science fiction and telling a very human story. I did find moments of it to be a little saccharine, which some of it didn't ring true. I don't know where thank you, Joanne. Yes, controversial yet brave. In watching it, maybe I just wasn't in the right headspace or what, but I did find it to be a little like heavy-handed on the melodrama, some of the music. I think Tony Todd is a brilliant actor, but I think he's a little heavy-handed in the episode, just watching the acting. But all in all, I think it's still a really good episode. It's a very minor kind of bullshitty things, but as an example of like what is good about what is good about Star Trek, I think is present in this episode. And it's a brilliant example of it.
For the audience, can you define saccharine again for the audience?
Oh, saccharine, a little overly sweet. Saccharine means sugar. So it's a little overly like melodramatic sweet. It's a little too like melodramatic. It's just there. We understand that like Jake as his connection to his father and how that's important is very central to the show and essential to these two characters, I think. especially in these early seasons. I feel like it gets a little sidelined once we get into the Dominion War a little bit, in my opinion. But it does feel like it is leaning so heavy into this kind of melodrama of what's happening. It comes off, it just came off a little, just like a little too, it felt syrupy. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone here, but like I enjoyed it for what it was. Watching it critically, I just found some of it to be a little too melodramatic.
Yeah, well, if I can be brave for a moment, it wasn't for the audience. I was asking for myself, because when I looked it up, it said an artificial sweetener, and I was like, that's clearly wrong, and then yet it is somehow accurate.
It's a little. It's right. That saccharin is there's a chemical, but you can use it as a.
Too much of a good thing is how I always call it.
Yeah. But like objectively, I found it to be it's a great episode, a great character study of a character we don't get much of. But I just found it to be at points so melodramatic. And it might have just been Tony Todd's voice. Like everything he said just felt like it's so weighted and heavy. But I think it's just literally his voice. Knowing him from other things.
30 years older
Yeah.
than the actor playing this role. Quick aside, I was once cast to play an old man, and the show ended up getting canceled. And the hardest thing was getting my voice right, because while I look older than I am, I sound the way I do, and trying to sound older is a struggle. And so I agree. I think he maybe went a little hard with the old man cadence voice. Krista, what were your thoughts?
You're
Krista,
muted,
you did
Krista.
such a good job muting that we can't hear you.
Sorry. I agree with Will. I don't think it was just saccharin. It was like artificial aspartame. It was like and Joanne is right. It was cloying. I kept thinking Candyman, which sort of plays. I didn't like the girl. I thought it was very strange that this girl just shows up, and he's like, well, at any other time in my life, I would have told you to fuck off, but have a seat, let's have some tea, and I'm gonna tell you all of my personal story. That said, I thought they did two really interesting things that sort of mirror what the prophets said to Benjamin early on, and that is you've got to let go of the chains of the past in order to move forward. So you have to get out of that trauma in order to move forward. And I thought it was interesting that they sort of foreshadowed the muse with the first book he wrote. But the best thing that I think they did was the scene where where young Jake is becoming very emotional and saying, you know, if I leave this ship, then I leave him. I leave all the touchstones. I leave everything that reminds me of him. And I think that that's really what grief is. It's that hesitancy to unload anything that person has touched. And in many ways, if you get rid of it, it makes it more real, but it also is something for which you can feel very guilty about. And I think that shows with the course of his life. He felt guilty, and he sacrificed his life or the pursuit of what he wanted to do under the weight of all of that guilt. So it's beautifully done. And I think, but I didn't enjoy it. It was a lovely episode, but I really wouldn't want to watch it again. But I think the way they presented that father-son relationship and the way older Jake, just the massive amounts of tears, it was very effective, but it's not an episode I would watch again. And I don't know if it's just because it's depressing or if it's overly melodramatic. But I do tend to like the episodes that are focused on Jake and Benjamin, quite likely because they never really had a parent-child relationship addressed in that way. This is the first time they're actually just using them as a unit instead of setting the parent aside and having all the other shipmates kind of be the mentor. He really is his mentor. And so I liked it for that. But again, I wouldn't watch it again.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody's been saying. I think it is overhyped, but it is done well. There are some things that are weird, like having that girl just randomly show up. Totally agree. If it was like an old writing assistant or something like that coming by for a chat, like it maybe this is a 21st century or at the time 20th century sensibility, but like young white lady showing up at an old black man's house just feels weird, and I don't trust white women for any number of reasons. As a whole, not I trust Krista specifically, but white women in groups can't be trusted. Let's see those thumbs for the visitor. Let's see those thumbs. We'll vote however you want to vote.
Peer pressure, Will. Peer pressure.
I'm doing it. No, I'm doing it sideways.
There you go.
So after such an intense episode, we have to lighten it up a little bit. So I'll just call out Joanne's comment. Have you seen Sirach recently, baby? Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Say more, Trevor.
Moving on. I could, but you'll push the button. If I say more, you're going to push the button.
Do it anyway.
Fine. Just push it because I'm thinking it.
Do it.
I'm thinking.
Sirach, we're all thinking things. You're a
Maybe
very
I would-
handsome man.
That Deep Space Nine. Anyway,
Okay.
That would be that music. Is
God.
that music supposed to be like the red alert on a gay starship? Is that what that is? That would be interesting. Yeah,
Are you new here,
Starship
Ken?
Palm Springs.
Where have
I-
you
I
been?
am.
Ken,
Well, I
welcome
didn't-
to Salon.
I
The rules are.
didn't put together that that's like the alarm, the red
It's okay.
alert.
There are no rules except if you light a candle, you must set an intention. It's fine.
Yeah.
Episode 3,
Let's pick up the pace, kids.
Hippocratic Oath. I think we're going to move through this one pretty fast. Imprisoned by Jem'Hadar rebels, Dr. Bashir and Chief O'Brien differ on whether to help their captors break the Dominion's brutal bonds. It's an interesting episode about addiction, an interesting episode about Bashir as a doctor. I think we talked about him growing up last season, and there's some interesting growing up in this episode. And frankly, I just really like the tension in their relationship. It's not an episode I've watched over and over again, but I'm personally very fond of when they take two people who clearly have a connection and then kind of strain it a little bit. But what are your thoughts?
3 things: morality tale, a friendship getting built and better. Balloons is point to B, and balloons make me forget the third. The doctor doctoring. For being such a creep in so many ways and so many times, when he's actually doctoring, he's very endearing. So this was an endearing Bashir episode, seeing their relationship, and then the morality tale of helping a, at this point, potential enemy. That's why I wanted to talk about it, even though it's not the most dynamic episode.
It also foreshadows the quickening,
which we'll be talking about for sure.
He really puts his foot on the business and says, "I'm not leaving." This time he left, and I like O'Brien is O'Brien. He's like, I'm a still point in chaos. Shit's gonna go down, and this is the way it works.
Ken or Will, did you want to talk about this episode? You don't have to. And don't let me say you don't have to nudge you not to.
I was just going to say it's like a basics. like a meat and potatoes kind of episode. Like it's not it. I don't know. It just felt a little basic. Like it's a good Star Trek episode, I would say, but like, and it deals with kind of a complex issue, but I didn't find it overly compelling. I did find myself really focusing on laundry while watching this episode. So it's nice to see the Bashir. It's nice to see the Bashir O'Brien thing kind of start to develop more. But I, it's fine. It's fine.
Ken, did you have any thoughts? Or we can, I see a head shaking. Let's see those thumbs. It's not the most dynamic episode, but I thought it was it's a good enough for a thumbs up.
It decided to, it was like, hey, we're going to do a thing. And then it did a thing. And that's basically Hippocratic Oath in a nutshell. All right, folks. Episode 4, Indiscretion. Kira reluctantly allows Dukat to accompany her on a mission to find lost Bajoran prisoners, a mission with emotional consequences for them both. It's actually quite a good description.
Yeah. I meant for this to be a no discussion, but I didn't warn anybody ahead of time. So if folks do want to talk about it, I don't want to step over that.
I was just pissed that the indiscretion was a love child. I thought we were going to get some Kira Dukat nasty.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. How dare you?
I was really disappointed by that. And also,
how dare you?
You thorns out of his ass is.
You and that actor are the only 2 people on this planet who want that to happen.
That I wanted that to happen, and I was not mad about it. I was like, "Oh, indiscretion. Okay, I see where this is going." And then they were like, "No, here's my half Bajoran love child," and I was like. And then later she gets adopted by Kira, and I'm like, the fuck is this? What? Can you people not find condoms or any kind of prophylactic at all? There's just children everywhere. Everybody.
You think a fascistic dictator is going to wrap his dick?
Stan, I do want to.
Benji says that was the plan. That was the plan. Benji.
I do want to, in support of Krista, I do want to say, because even though I am also anti-Dukat and Kira, I do want to say at this point in Deep Space Nine, I understand why she's thinking what she's thinking.
Yes.
And things may change later, they may not, but I have a feeling they will.
Hinting at a spoiler that we won't talk about, but I am so excited for you, Krista. Every week I'm just like, she's experiencing this for the first time. How fun. Ken, how about your indiscretions? Let's get a list.
Yeah, I mean, this is another one that I don't really have too much to comment about. I think it was interesting that it had the, we saw it. I think we saw it when we were out in Palm Springs, how incredibly bright the setting, the lighting was on the outside. And so I think they made good use of the exteriors. Not very many Star Trek episodes are outside in any way, shape, or form. And this is one of them. And I think they did an okay job with it. But that's it. That's all I got to say.
All right, let's see those thumbs.
I thought it was all right.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. I give it a thumbs up. So did everyone else except Ken. All right, guys. Episode 5, Rejoined. A Trill scientist whose host was once... I'm going to start the sentence over again. A Trill scientist whose host once was married to Dax's previous host arrives on Deep Space Nine. The former lovers must decide if they want to resume their relationship and defy the Trill something.
You can put your better glasses on. I did not mean to make it harder for you to read.
It's totally not my glasses. It's the description like fades away. Defy the laws of Trill society. So, a Trill scientist whose host was once married to Dax's previous host arrives on DS9. The former lovers must decide if they want to resume their relationship and defy the laws of Trill society.
She should have done it. Otherwise, she would not have been assimilated and become the Borg Queen.
True story.
Spoilers for Voyager, but not really.
I'm continually stunned at the effortless ease with which they have Jadzia willingly forfeiting her life for love. It's just a constant. It's like we have episodes where she's like, I washed out and I was really upset and I really wanted to do this. And then we have the episode with the Mr. Boring guy that she was going to go and be in nowhere for 60 years. And now she's with this person that isn't actually, like, the only thing worthwhile about this episode for me was the 15-minute explanation of how everything was related. It was like trying to, it explained most families. Well, this one is an aunt that's over here that was married to this brother. But otherwise, I'm just like, they just keep doing Jadzia wrong in the storylines, in my opinion. They just keep sort of undermining her strength emotionally, and they double down on her strength as like a physical fighter, or her willingness to get into the fray. And that's the only thing that they seem to be able to accentuate. They don't seem to be able to accentuate the emotional side. So that's it.
It was also, I believe, Avery's directorial debut on DS9. And interviews with Terry indicate that the scene between the two actors, between Susanna and Terry, the kiss, was so respectful. It was sort of a closed set. Avery just said, take your time, do what you need to do what you want to do. And they did. And it made Trek history. So that was kind of cool.
We ended up discussing this episode in college as part of my queer studies course in television. And it's interesting when we talk about this episode because it's a kiss that is not a lesbian female to female kiss, that is not not developed for the male gaze. And it's not like, ooh, two girls are kissing in a hot tub. It was like two people who have feelings for each other, and then that's what's happening. And we did talk about there is a bit of a they can't be together. There's always this kind of forbidden romance and queer representation, kill your gaze, trauma, they can't be together for whatever reason. There's this kind of constant narrative. But when we talk about that episode, it's really funny because it's people found it to be upon this episode, it was really heavily panned, and people did not. It was super negative in terms of its response. But it's because my teacher kind of spoke about it and said that the predominant audience for Star Trek is in fact male. I think it's 60, 65, 35 or something at the time. So that the fact that the kiss was not directed toward the male gaze is why most of the audience did not like it. But it's just a very interesting episode, the kiss itself. And I thought the acting is really good. I thought Terry does a really incredible job as an actress. She really steps up kind of as an actor. She is acting. I don't know her sexual preferences, but she is definitely engaging in a way where it is very clear that there is romantic intentions as an actor. And sometimes that's when an actor who might be heterosexual might be playing a gay character. Sometimes it comes off a little oh, we have to kiss, and then you can see their body kind of tense up, but you can see she's really giving herself to that. So kudos to Terry, and kudos to the kiss. But thumbs up for me for sure.
I love this episode, and I've got to say, while I am as gay as they come, I mean, come on. After that passionate kiss, falling into her window, this is her best outfit. And by the way, Rick Berman, it's not skin tight, and she still looks sexy as fuck. It doesn't have to be a cat suit. Oh, Terry Farrell is a gem.
If it makes you feel better, Stan, you regained your gay card right after saying how beautiful she looked, and then just saying, "Look at this outfit." It was pretty homosexual. You're fine. You're safe.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I was worried.
Thumbs?
Ken, did you have any thoughts on this episode?
Well, I just wanted to say that it's another brave, again, remembering where this was in the time. It was the 1990s, right? And I think that it was, you know, it was again pretty brave of Star Trek along the lines of other brave things that Star Trek has done in talking about you know, gender and so forth. So I think from that point of view, and the acting was phenomenal. And you know, I'm always for a really great Jadzia episode. Terry Farrell is always fantastic when she's fantastic, which is all the time. So my thumbs up.
I was also going to say one thing that I loved about this episode is that we do get more about Trill Society. I wish we got more because for as much as we got, they leave us wondering. We got a lot more about the Bajoran Society than we did about the Trill Society, which makes sense. We're in the Bajoran system, but it was always fascinating to me. It's like, wait, the two hosts are not the people who were married. So like, how long do you have to wait? Is it for the rest of that symbiote's life? And then it opened up a whole bunch of other questions as I was rewatching it the other day. I'm like, what about siblings? What about kids? Like Jadzia has great grandkids from previous hosts running around out there. Is she not allowed to talk to them? Like, is it just romantic relationships you can't restart? We see pushing some of those boundaries in the future, but lots of fun, fascinating stuff. So let's see those thumbs. All right.
Episode 7, Starship Down. While in the Gamma Quadrant for trade talks with the Karama, the Defiant is attacked by Jem'Hadar warships and chased into a planet's inhospitable atmosphere, as opposed to all those hospitable atmospheres.
All right, let's breeze through this one and let's see those thumbs while I add a little bit of commentary. This is not my favorite episode. I've seen it so many times because it was one of those ones that popped up on syndication when I was a kid. Like the season 4 was Way of the Warrior. This episode, The Visitor, came at the end for some reason because they could put it in whatever order. But the thing that I want to mention about this episode before we move on is just that we see a really beautiful relationship building between Kira and Cisco that we've seen snippets before, but just seeing their arc from adversaries in the pilot to like her devastation that he might die was really powerful.
And her admission that she actually views him as a religious figure.
Yeah.
Huge step. Thumbs? All right. Episode 8, Little Green Men. While taking Nog to Starfleet Academy on Earth, Quark's shuttle malfunctions and crashes into Roswell, New Mexico in the year 1947.
Let's breeze through this one as well, but Ken is gonna provide some commentary on this one while we show those thumbs for Trevor.
So, you know, this is probably the best of the Ferengi specific episodes. It also has, you know, from a time travel point of view, I think it is a really fun, awesome time travel episode. It's also a very strong Quark and Odo episode, and it has a lot of meta sort of behind the scenes stuff because some of the characters were supposed to be charactered after Gene Roddenberry. And you know, this was very, you know, it was 1995 in the middle of the X-Files, and so this was a sort of an X-Files-ly kind of thing too, which is a new adjective I just came up with. So yeah, so I thought actually it was a really, really cool, fun episode. The X-Files Ferengi of it all, the X-Ferengis. So.
As I learned to unmute myself, episode 9, The Sword of Kahless. Worf, Dax, and Kor are a respected Klingon warrior. That's debatable. Tangle with Worf's enemy and one another while searching for a legendary Klingon Empire sword. That is a horrible description of the Sword of Kahless, but not a bad description of the episode.
Kirk gets name checked in this episode.
We're gonna breeze past this one as well. I will say one fun thing about this episode is that Jadzia shot Worf.
It felt like Mariner at a salon.
It was nice to see John Colicos
stunning
again.
People.
Yeah.
It felt like the one true ring in the eye of Sauron, and it was all a little
Also, Worf is a child. His sense of honor has always been backwards and wrong. The seeing him and the Dahar Master act a damn fool over that sword. It's like, yeah, neither of you deserve this.
Thumbs.
John Colicos always gets a thumbs up for me.
Oh God, I have to do math. Give me your thumb again, Stan. Down. Down, down, side, side, up is a side.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Y'all stop making me add after champagne. Episode 10, Our Man Bashir. Crew members barely escape a runabout explosion that ruins the transporter. Darn it. And traps their patterns in Bashir's secret agent holosuite fantasy. I think it's a little twisted that we're calling it a fantasy. It's just a holosuite program. Like, although he's being a little naughty in it. So anyway.
Ken, you had some thoughts on this one?
This is obviously an amazing homage to James Bond, especially the 1960s, Sean Connery, James Bond. They do fantastic work behind the camera and with the music and everything to make this an amazing homage to the James Bond film series. And I'm here for every moment of it. Fantastic.
I also love this episode. It gives Avery Brooks the opportunity to Avery Brooks the fuck out of his character. Worf was even fun. And seeing Julian and Garrick solve things, super fun. And Garrick is so fucking funny in this episode when they wake up on Mount Everest and the first thing he says is, "Oh, another decorator's nightmare." Dire stakes, but that bitch is still gonna read you for filth. It's love it. Let's see those thumbs, everybody.
And Dr. Noah. Let's not forget Dr. Noah as the name of the character. So yeah, great episode.
Ups, ups, ups across the board. Episode 11, Homefront. After an explosion kills diplomats at a Federation Romulan conference, Earth's power relay system is sabotaged and the evidence points to the Dominion. I mean, yeah, that's pretty accurate. It's a little lofty of a description, but that's pretty accurate. This is not a two-parter, but this has always felt like it falls victim to the second part is never as great as the first part, but those are my thoughts. Discuss.
I would like to point out that living in New Orleans, I can confidently tell you nobody hangs a stuffed carcass of an alligator from a ceiling as a decorative element. And I just wish everybody would stop trying to present New Orleans on screen, any screen. There's a magic that just can't translate. And it's always like a lot of hot sauce and alligators and madras. Nobody wears madras. We don't have bread pudding souffle. It's either bread pudding or it's souffle. It's two different things. It's things like that.
We do have beignets. Beignets.
We do have beignets. But I like that we got to meet Cisco Sr. And Leah Brahms knocked me out. I was like watching it going, okay, I have to forget Geordi for a minute. So this one was kind of, it to me, it was just like, it was like Find the Changeling. It's an entertaining episode, but it was kind of, to use Will's word, it was kind of basic. I mean, that's it.
Will?
Yeah, this was kind of interesting because watching this when it kind of aired, I don't think it really settled with me, like what this episode is kind of alluding to. It really alludes to how the Federation just does not know how to deal with war. Like, they don't know how to deal with this. Like, the ideals of Starfleet and the Federation are so incompatible with the idea of fighting, of engaging in a conflict for survival in that regard. Like the Dominion is very much like, you know, for your own autonomy. That seeing the Federation and Starfleet kind of engage in this sort of like move into this almost like military fascist kind of movement, which we'll see kind of carry on to the next episode. But seeing how quickly they move to that is kind of startling, because like it always felt like, especially in the original series in TNG, that the morals of the Federation and Starfleet were always so bedrock and so solid that they were and nothing could shake them. And this was like a moment where a volcano erupted underneath that house, and just everyone's like, well, fuck, what do we do? And everyone's trying to shoot a gun down the volcano. It's just like it was interesting to watch, because, you know, gauging our, you know, not to get political, our own current political climate, where we're kind of dealing with a would-be fascist in some regard. It is seeing it, I felt like it could have gone further, but considering this is the mid-90s, I think that it does what it needs to do. But kind of the idea that the idea that their power grid was attacked by an adversary, that the entire that their immediate response is to go into a military state, is kind of interesting, considering the just how people get pissed that that Starfleet becomes evil in New Trek, but how quickly they're able to go to that in what is considered a classic Trek episode it's very interesting to me, because it gives kind of a the word I'm looking for, a foundational memory for how that kind of moves forward in Picard. It kind of linked Picard to this somehow in my brain. I don't know why it connected to these neurons, but like it moved into this really crazy fascist police state after one attack. And then we see later how that's kind of played out, and how like there's other attacks that happen. But yeah, it's just interesting. It's interesting to see that kind of play out in a way that was almost a little too subtle. But I don't know. I'm rambling, but it hit me a little bit more this time around than previously.
But
Ken,
while
what were your thoughts?
Oh, sorry.
No. Trevor, say your point, and then we'll turn it to Ken.
While likely opposite ends of the political spectrum, again, not getting too political, but while on opposite ends of the spectrum, seeing the reaction of Jarish Inyo to the attack on Earth, and seeing 5 years later, another unequipped, unprepared, inarticulate president faced with an attack on home soil that hadn't happened in a very, very long time, and that each of them reacted in a very over-indexed, showy, I'll just listen to whoever tells me what to do kind of fashion. Very prophetic for DS9.
It's interesting. It's kind of prophetic in that, like you said, it's very prophetic, because it does seem like there's a I don't know, the quickness in which it happened. It seems like that kind of, they're making a comment that kind of an interesting comment, that like the kind of fascistic nature, this kind of reaction that they have is almost human nature. How almost to the idea of an attack, to an affront on this kind of peace they believe they have, which right now they're fighting a war, but not really. Like it's very kind of a Cold War situation with the Dominion, where these things are happening, and there's these kind of attacks, and they're in the Federation. Starfleet is very kind of ignoring it, pretending it's not happening. But then the minute that attack becomes real, their immediate response is to go into a military lockdown and convert to a military police state. Is an interesting commentary that might just be the writer's assumption that that's human nature, that can't be kind of worked away with like Starfleet. We bounce back from it, obviously, if we talked about the next episode, but like the quickness in which that happens, I don't know. I know that there's not this kind of like, I'm connecting things that maybe don't need to be completely connected, but I don't know. It was just interesting to me. It just kind of linked some things in my brain.
I completely agree with you, though.
Behind you.
The connection, though, to Picard like the it can't happen here of Picard was very much just on full display in this episode in 1996, and Star Trek fans didn't completely lose their shit. But for some reason they did when things were depicted darker in a show that they just didn't care for, which tells you that fans aren't always the most reliable narrators of what Star Trek is doing.
Snaps for that.
I think what you got is in 1996, it wasn't as real, potentially, in people's minds as it was in Picard season 2 in the real world, right? You have a situation where you have Robert Foxworthy's character and others saying, only I could fix this. And I'm going to do it. And you have people who are scared and afraid and who are thinking that the only people who can protect us from the other, whoever the other is going to fall behind the authoritarian leader and let the authoritarian leader take it and say, only I can fix it. Here's what we have to do. In 1996, that was not as prominent in some people's minds as it is today. And so, again, I'm not trying to get too political about this, but the idea that you have the fear of something, and again, we see in the next episode only 2 or 3 changelings. I forget how many changelings, but it was a small amount. We're able to do this and totally upset the populace and have everybody fall behind the authoritarian dictatorship style of someone who's going to say, we only can do it this way. So that is very scary. It's very relevant, and it's just 2 very powerful episodes.
I actually meant to put both of these episodes together. So for brevity, we're gonna move on because this really is a 2-parter. They just didn't name it part 2 because Paradise Lost part 1 would have been a spoiler, I guess. Or I don't know, writers be writing. But let's see those thumbs.
Krista had her hand up.
Yes,
it'll work. It'll work for the second one as well. It's the same theme for both episodes. So
we can just bridge it and then rate them both. So what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say that it everything that you're talking about the acts of terrorism or treason and acts of patriotism become subjective, and whoever has harnessed the military arm, whoever has control of that is often considered in their own mind as the patriot. Regardless of what they're doing, they're often considered the patriot. And it was uncomfortably subjective the way it was presented in the show, because it is completely subjective. It's completely up to one's own perspective. And I liked the presentation of Starfleet and all its faults and fallibility and its insufficiency to task and to deal with this against the backdrop of the Dominion and the founders harnessing the Vorta and the Jem'Hadar and basically sending fear out into the galaxy as their kind of propaganda before they actually move in. It's a very effective way of doing things. Is it a terrorist move? Yes. Would they call it terrorism? Absolutely not. It's survival to them. So it's all subjective. It's all just a giant gumbo mess, depending on perspective. And I think in that they presented both of those episodes presented that idea very well without providing any answer at all. Like, there's literally no answer to any of this. It's just, this is what it is. So to Will's point, yes, it might be human nature. It is human nature to do this. And that is a little scary. But
two grubs and a remoulade sauce. Let's see those thumbs.
It can be applied to all the species.
Okay, moving on to Paradise Lost. Thumbs for as Sisko mobilizes Starfleet security for war with the Dominion. He becomes suspicious of Admiral Layton's plans. Thumbs for the conclusion. Okay.
And I love a good Gloria Swanson turban. You cannot.
It is very Gloria Swanson, isn't it?
Yes.
Right.
All right, we're gonna breeze through
President.
the next 3 episodes.
President Snuffleupagus. Episode 13, Crossfire. Odo's love for Kira conflicts with his duty to protect First Minister Shakar, while negotiation meetings are followed by dates with Kira. In my opinion, the only good thing about this episode is the introduction of the Bajoran dress uniform. Your thoughts, thumbs, feelings?
Yeah, we got to breeze past this one.
That's a sideways.
Kira.
Hashtag Kira. I heard that sad little whimper.
That's all.
Dan.
It's a thumbs up for Kira. That's it. Like it wasn't a great episode, but it's Kira.
It's Kira. I love Kira. Episode 14, Return to Grace. Dukat, demoted to freighter commander, and Kira join forces to restore Dukat's position by attacking the Klingons who destroyed a Cardassian outpost. That's a lot of so-and-so went to such and such to do a thing with so-and-so, and then so-and-so went to such and such. Anyway, there's a freighter, there's some phaser fire, and it's Dukat trying to be cool, and all he does is hang out on a bird of prey, which we all saw in Star Trek 4. Feelings, thoughts, thumbs?
Ooh, unanimous.
I like that Kira finally admits that she has a type, and it is milquetoast. Is milquetoast.
Listen, First Minister Ghost Candle is not he's not bad to look at.
No,
but he
wasn't bad to look at then in all his 19th or 17th century finery. So,
but speaking of having a type, Google Duncan Rager as Zorro. Because he played Zorro on the Family Channel, and he was fucking hot.
I'm sure he will.
Although white man, that's weird.
Weird. Moving on. Episode. Okay. See, I've avoided commentary in my pre-reading up until now, but episode 15, Sons of Moog, gets a ooh. All of the Trev reveal noises are happening all at once. Because I have feelings. I have very passionate feelings about this episode. Because it toys with me and then it slaps me in a way that I don't like. Episode 15, Sons of Moog. Worf's brother, having lost honor because of Worf's allegiance to the Federation, asks his brother to kill him. I appreciate that Google has gone back to shitty descriptions of otherwise questionable episodes. My thoughts and feelings are this was great until they forcibly erased someone's memory. What are your thoughts, guys? Anybody want to defend lack of consent with respect to medically induced amnesia?
Yeah, the execution was off for sure. Like, what could they have asked Kern, and then Worf could have done it anyway? Like, I'm not saying he should have done it he should not have done it without consent, nor should the doctor, obviously. But then also, and he shouldn't do it if his brother specifically says no. But I would not have disliked this episode as much. It would have been out of character. It would have been hard to write for sure. But getting Kern to say yes, that would have been an interesting. Like this is the way that you serve the Empire, is like how to get him to say yes. Like I think that would have made it a lot better for sure.
I thought it was interesting that they, here's the sequel to the whole plot line from TNG, Worf's arc from TNG, which I thought was interesting to pull that forward, because there's not a lot of going back to Worf's TNG history in DS9. Here we see it very clearly in this episode. I also agree. I think that it was a really not appropriate, to say the least, thing to do. You don't do what you did, especially without consent and all of that. So I agree with you, Trevor, that was just not the right way to do it. But I did like it from the point of view of let's now, it's Ronald D. Moore coming back and writing this episode and calling back to the TNG arcs that he helped create.
Yeah, to me, there was some fantastic writing that suddenly just in the last like 3 minutes completely fell apart. Like you were taking me somewhere, and I was waiting for this surprise, fantastic solution to this impossible plot that you've laid out before me, and then your solution was awful. And also, forgive me, Krista, spoiler alert, not revisited. So okay, you just wiped a dude's memory for no apparent reason. Thoughts, feelings, thumbs? I don't like it. Thank you all almost all of you for agreeing with me.
Well, just to be clear, I do agree with you, but my sideways thumb was for the callbacks to TNG.
I was speaking specifically to your thumbs, not to you as people. Just one appendage. Episode 16, Bar Association. After being forced to work while he is ill, Rom rallies the employees of Quark's bar to form a union and demand better hours and salaries. This one's hilarious to me in so many ways, and also super awkward, because it just feels there's some payoff with respect to what they're doing to the Ferengi, and we know that it kind of lasts into Lower Decks, but at this point in watching the series, it feels very not Ferengi. It feels like they're stripping Quark of his differentness. As much as I agree with the end result in a human situation, in a Ferengi situation, it feels like they're diluting them a bit. But those are just my thoughts. What do you guys think?
I wanted to talk about this episode because, like, I think if we weren't in an interesting time for workers in the real world right now, with unions having a resurgence, this probably would have been an episode that I would have said, let's just breeze past it. So I think it's relevant to today. But one thing that I wanted to note is just I love Rom's character development. Like we've said it before, but the thing that this show does so well is everybody gets growth. Like Rom, when this series started, like there was no way that character was going to go anywhere. And like we know from Lower Decks that Rom is going to be the grand Nagus of Ferenginar. It's just, and watching this episode, it's like that's the future Nagus. That's fucking wild. But yes, Union.
It's fun. We needed a fun episode. We needed kind of a fun, lighter episode. I remember this episode, for some reason, this was like on the road. This was one of the ones that kind of was on the rotation for syndication growing up. And I just always remember Rom pouring that thing in his ear and watching it again. I had a couple glasses of wine, and it made me laugh so hard I had to pause the episode. I don't know why it was so funny to me, but just like the look on his face as he's pouring this weird shit in his ear was so funny. But yeah, it's a fun episode. We kind of needed one. It's a develop of like Rom and the relationship of the Ferengi in terms of their to each other and their greed. But yeah, it's fun. It makes them seem more more like an actual species. Like a friend of mine made a point that Star Wars, all of the planets are one thing. It's like, oh, it's just a desert planet. This planet is just an ocean, like like in Star Wars. And then but then in Star Trek, the aliens are just one thing. Yeah. So like, ooh, Romulans, sneaky, Klingons, honor, Ferengi, greed. Like they're always stuck on one thing. So having that in mind, it was fun. Thank you, Walter. It was fun to see the Ferengi kind of balloon out of that a little bit.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it was a great episode. It was a fun episode. The Ferengi episodes are always kind of fun. I think the other one we just discussed earlier, Little Green Men, is the better of the Ferengi episodes for this season, but this was a very fun, cool. And, Rom, you have characters that just are massive outgrowth characters that, to your point, Stan, that just sort of started at one place and just sort of stole the show. And I think Rom is one of them. Garrick is another one. And it's just great to see how these secondary characters just really grow in these shows.
Let's see those thumbs. Union.
I'm the only weirdo. I said sideways.
It's fine. You
Everything's
don't support
fine.
workers. Wow.
Oh, Stanley. Episode 17.
Trevor is in HR, everybody.
Nonsense.
He's one of the good ones.
I never know how to pronounce this episode. Episode 17, Accession.
Ascension. Right?
No,
Accession.
there's no N.
Oh,
It's
No.
Accession.
Accession. Yeah.
Accession.
I've
Accession,
always thought it was
not
Ascension.
Accession.
Whoops.
Ascension's another episode.
No one's
It is.
defending it, except the
Anyway,
baby.
episode 17, the one that starts with an A. Cisco steps aside as the emissary, big mistake, when a
The
legendary
Scythian.
Bajoran poet claims the title, but has second thoughts when his successor advocates returning to a caste system. I kind of love this episode for all the Bajoran of it.
Yeah, me too. Also, this episode may or may not be referenced in my fun writing project with the caste system of it all. Yeah, the Kira episode. I mean, not really, but very Bajoran heavy. Learning more about what the Bajorans were like pre occupation, which we don't get a lot of. We get quick references. This is the first episode where it's like, yeah, no, you shouldn't be in the military. You shouldn't be a Vedic. You shouldn't be sitting here because your caste is unclean. Seeing how quickly a society could devolve with a charismatic leader or someone being anointed, even if he wasn't that charismatic, is interesting to see. And again, there are a lot of real world parallels there. I am not afraid to get political. Like the Trump of it all. Like it is wild what people will ignore and believe to support that man. And while this pseudo emissary was not, cartoonishly evil and selfish and a fraud, his very quick condemnation of people doing what they were passionate about rather than what their caste system said this is a great episode.
I enjoy the trip to the Profits to ask to speak to their manager. It was like, come on, we're going to go and we're going to talk to the manager and we're going to find out. But the bonus of that scene was that the guy willingly pulled back. He was like, okay. And that doesn't normally happen. Once the power's there, they're holding on to it with everything they've got. So, but, and also the year-long bromance breakup for Bashir and O'Brien.
Yeah, I thought the subplot was a little weird. I didn't like the subplot because it always felt like, oh no, my family's back and now I have to be a husband and a father. And he's like, but I like hanging out with my friend. It's a little like, it's typical man, but you're gonna get that. But yeah, this episode was interesting. I did find it a little like bitchy of the Prophets to be like, you're not emissarying enough, so we brought this dude to kind of school you a little bit, and we're gonna send him back. But guess what? We did this for your benefit. It just seemed a little, I don't know. It just seemed a little bitchy of an alien that is non-corporeal and lives in a wormhole that they're like, we brought this guy back to really fuck with people for your benefit. I don't know. It just felt a little, it's a good episode. I was just like, these bitches, I would be so pissed. I'd be like, then go bring that bitch back. I'm done being your embassy. I don't need to be schooled on nothing,
But Will, their response to trauma was, hey, bitch, why do you exist here? Like, did you expect them to be warm and fuzzy?
No, it's true. No, it's true.
They're not nice. They're just not nice. I worship them, but they're not nice.
And they didn't bring back that Vedic that was killed either.
That's true.
That's because she's found another milk toast, so we didn't need to bring that Vedic back.
No, not that one. That's not the one who died in this episode, Krista.
Sorry.
You have an agenda and you're pushing it. Let's see those thumbs for a session.
For the one no one can say. Yay, we're thumbs up, even though we can't pronounce it. Episode 18, Rules of Engagement. For those of you who love a good courtroom drama. Worf stands trial for destroying a civilian transport ship during a battle with the Klingons. Directed by LeVar Burton. I don't know why they had to put that in this, but they did. It's there. I just read what's on the screen, guys.
This episode would have been a skip if not for the courtroom drama of it all, but I will start by saying the one time Worf fires a torpedo and it hits, because he's not the one actually firing the torpedo. Remember Way of the Warrior? Remember all of those fucking torpedoes that missed? Dozens. And yet this time, hits immediately because he had a better gunner. Worf is terrible. Any other thoughts on this episode?
I liked the this one gave me a satisfying like twist at the like, not that it was like a huge twist, but I didn't see the ending coming, and I liked that about it. Also, Vulcan Judge, yay! There should be more of them.
I don't understand why there weren't more objection speculation. It seemed like there were several opportunities in there where there was just rampant speculation, and I don't really understand the court system of Starfleet. It's like too many hats. People are wearing a lot of hats, and I don't particularly understand it. But I did think it was funny, Stan, that the one time he does hit the target, he's brought up on charges.
I hated this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this sucks. I mean, I don't know. It's just, I hated it. I was like, God, this is boring. And then they're just, Worf's all like butthurt that he was charged with this, the twist and everything. But then like Worf being reprimanded at the end by Sisko because he was like, I wanted to get revenge. And Sisko's like, that's bad, reprimand.
Yeah.
I'm like, boot, skip, down.
Yeah.
It was just like, what was the point of this? It doesn't do anything for the season, doesn't do anything for the character, nothing. Like if Worf got like court-martialed, or like there was something else where he was like, if this was the intention, but you can't do that for the intention of it, or if he was found guilty of it, like he did it on purpose, or like he admits, like something that would make that character seem, I don't know, but then to be out of character for Worf, I don't know. This was just stupid. Like it was stupid.
And the basic premise was stupid too. Like they're in the middle of this battle. Warships are cloaking and decloaking. It makes absolute sense in that scenario when ships have been decloaking, fire on you, cloaking, decloaking, firing on you, cloaking. The second you can fire on something decloaking makes total sense in this. And they are in the middle of a battlefield. Like the basic premise of the episode just doesn't work for me.
It sets Worf back so dramatically. I'm like, you have somebody who's been a lieutenant commander in Starfleet for a year and a half at this point, has been in Starfleet for 12 years or so, was the third officer of the Federation flagship, and he doesn't know how to verify a target before he fires at it. Like it just doesn't. It unravels. They do a weird thing, and I like the relationship that develops between Sisko and Worf, but it does this weird thing of erasing his career up to the point of going on to DS9. Like, and it's just it's odd. It doesn't.
It is. It's not.
Feels anti-TNG to me.
I don't know. He was always pretty trigger happy.
I don't think Picard would have let him sit in the command chair for as frequently as he did. And like I said, he was next up after Data. It just didn't, at that, he had been on Enterprise for 8 years at that point. Like it just, yes, he wanted to shoot a hole in the view screen in the first season, but like he evolved, he grew, he became a better commander, and now all of a sudden he blew up a ship of civilians because he didn't think to scan it first. It just it feels very this is a different Worf than the Worf you knew, and somehow he's dumber.
I will say again though, like call
Yeah.
me a warmonger. In that scenario that they laid out, I understand not verifying a target because there
Cisco
weren't
pointed out that
civilian
he
ships.
knew there were civilian ships in the area, and that
Oh.
was the chastising that
I take
Ben
it
was
back.
giving him.
Oh, that should have happened earlier. That's right. I remember that should have been a big part of the trial. Like you knew there were civilian ships in the area. Like, yeah, that would have fixed it for me. Anyway, fix it.
So I have an unrelated motion to bring to the chair. I think we need to have a new banner that says "This is just stupid." That's a quote from Will. This is just stupid. And then
stupid.
We do
This is
have one
stupid.
of those, but this is just going to be a mean joke.
Yeah. And then we have to remember something happened, just as an aside. So
Yeah, something happened to her. It just boo.
Yes,
Boo.
and I was also remembering with who was it? Who was somebody was with the costuming and shit. Like Will's rant over the weekend about like you all live in space and yet you want to dress like you're in a Dickensian novel. I'm not doing it
Right.
justice. It was pretty epic.
They're in space and they're dressing like they're in a fucking Charles Dickens novel. It drives me fucking nuts. It's like I hate it. Like, oh, my downtime, my I'm wearing colonial garb. It's just fucking anyway. Next.
Let's see those thumbs for rules of engagement.
I like the courtroom at all, but all right, fine, it's a down.
Also, of course, he was going to get you to punch him, Worf, you dumb fuck. Ugh.
That part really pissed me off. Anyway. Okay, these are slightly out of order on the Googles, but
19 is hard time.
Okay.
Do you have
episode 19? Yeah, but it's yeah. Anyway, hard time. Like what I'm having following this season. The Agrathi accuse O'Brien of spying and punish him by implanting memories of a life-shattering 20-year prison sentence in his mind. As far as O'Brien must suffer episodes go, this one's pretty fucked up because it's not like he suffers for a brief period of time and then just gets to go home and snuggle. Homeboy's like making a nest on the floor, and Keiko, like I will say one of the things I like about this episode, it's hard to rewatch and it's hard to think of like the friend that he lost that he actually murdered that like never existed in the first place. Like all of that is awful. But it's there are some pretty cool Keiko moments in terms of her just sort of there's a lot of face acting in terms of just like seeing the pain that her husband's going through and what she does for him. What did I say, Stan? Did I say it or did you get a text?
No, I'm thinking about Rosalind Chow. She's amazing.
Oh,
and
she's also Jake Sisko.
I don't remember what precipitated this, but somebody, Will, you said it, right?
I did.
Like she's such a great actor. Oh, because we were talking about how Keiko was going to be the semi-recurring character, but then Rosalind Chow didn't want to sign up for that much of a commitment, and so the Jake Sisko character was created. And Will here made a joke about, well, Rosalind Chow's a great actress; she could have played both roles, and then that, of course, devolved into my ADHD ass just thinking about like her going from Miles, Dad, and like it was a lot funnier there than I'm sure it is here.
Yeah, like that was interesting.
Listen, after some desert sun and desert beverages, Rosalind Chow as Jake Sisko was just half of last weekend. It was half of last weekend.
I put this as an episode to skip, but this was an important conversation to have.
That said,
this is like
how did we feel about Hard Time?
This is the anti Inner Light. That's what I keep remembering about this one. This is the negative Inner Light.
It's the Inner Dark.
The Inner Dark.
Yeah.
All right, but it gets a thumbs up. Let's see those thumbs. Not to bias anyone.
All right, up we go.
All right, we got half an hour. We can do it.
Episode 20, Shattered Mirror. Cisco's late wife's double from a mirror universe takes Jake back to Terok Nor, which the Google description doesn't explain is actually DS9, but in the mirror universe. And Cisco follows and is forced to help fight the Alliance forces. All right, guys, we're back in the mirror universe. It's kind of an effed up introduction in terms of Jake walking in and seeing his mom, but it's not his mom. Like a little heads up next time your dead mother materializes from another universe. Like that's just, I mean, come on now. And yeah, so mirror hilarity ensues. Mad props to Nana for the intendant, which I will not attempt to describe as brilliantly as Joanne already has.
Yes.
But the intendant is everything Joanne said. Go back and watch. It's 2 episodes ago, y'all. It's not that much work for you. But watch Joanne describe her. But otherwise, that's the only redeeming quality, in my opinion, of this episode.
I actually, sorry. Let's get some order here. Sorry. Let's go to Ken, Will, then Krista. But remember, we got to wrap up in 28 minutes.
No, I was just doing a little previously on the Salon moment. So go ahead, Stan.
Let's skip to Will.
I am reminded that, bless her heart, Felicia Bell is not a very good actress. Like, she is a wooden board moving across the screen. I appreciate the episode. I feel like there would have been more weight to it if a better actress had been given the script, or she, I don't know, given an acting lesson. It's fine. It's just, I just can't get past how wooden she is as an actress. It's hard to kind of sit through that. And it's
we talked about it before. Like, she was cast to be a corpse and then a wormhole alien in her image.
Yeah.
So that like, wooden acting was actually perfect to be.
It was perfect for the wormhole. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But for this conveying emotion about having a child in another universe and you're dead and all the like that's a little more complex than just playing a corpse under plastic rubble. I can't. Anyway, yeah, that happened.
Good battle though.
Very good battle. Yeah, very good. But yeah, I don't know.
And some fun stuff for Sirach, like the trauma
for him.
The trauma that Jake Disco has to go through.
Yeah, he doesn't
lose your mom.
I guess he never
twice.
really dealt. Yeah, he never really dealt with the death of his mother. Like he kind of kept going and really latched on to Ben. So like that makes sense. But I don't know. It's a potential for a good episode that would have been serviced better with some stronger acting from Jennifer Cisco.
Krista, did you have thoughts on this episode, or shall we see thumbs?
I was just going to say that her range was really appropriate for the final scene where she's dead on a table. And I didn't really, I really didn't agree with the let's let Jake get to know the mom, not mom. The mirror episodes really don't do anything for me. I know y'all love them because you love them. But this advanced nothing, with the exception of, and this is a big stretch, some measure of closure for Jake. But that's pushing it. So
it does move the only thing it moves is the mirror universe's story, which is like, one can argue is not a story that we should be focusing on.
It's like every season has to have a mirror universe, and this one they used to introduce Worf's mirror, Worf.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, now Worf is part of this. Okay. But
the biggest miss for DS9, in my opinion, is that they didn't make the mirror universe integral to the plot of the Prime universe by making the mirror universe the solution to the Dominion War.
Ooh.
Similar to how in Discovery there was the whole, how did you conquer the Klingons? How did you, and there was a lesson sort of taken from that in terms of how to approach Prime Klingons. It would have been fantastic had that been the outcome, but it wasn't. It was just let's see how many times we can revisit this and make everyone bad, which was
And
weird.
sexy.
But anyway, and well, I mean, many of them are that without being in their mirror selves.
This is true. Let's see those thumbs, everybody.
Sideways. Episode 21, The Muse. Odo acts gallantly toward a pregnant Loxana Troy, guest star Majel Barrett. A mysterious woman, special guest star Meg Foster, helps Jake with his writing. That's literally what it says. She helps him with his writing. That's all. She was just there to help him with his writing.
Listen. So this is meant to be a skip for discussion, but I do just want to point out, for every time I've seen this episode, I was like, I know that voice, I know that face, and then I was like, oh yeah, she was Motherboard and blah blah blah, and then Trevor reminded me, like, dude, that was the original Evelyn in Masters of the Universe. The ill-fated Dolph Lundgren and I keep wanting to say Ray Liotta. That's Frank Langella, He-Man, co-starring Courtney Cox and a pre-Star Trek Robert Duncan McNeil. They were very sexy in that movie, and it made no sense that they were part of it.
3 people from that movie went on to be in Trek.
Yes. And I do want to not just highlight that I'm funny, but remind folks that they should be following the Salon at USS Salon on Twitter and now Blue Sky. But yeah, they should have called this bitch Adderella because she is Adderall. That's like she's Adderall smoke, right? My girlies know. Benji knows. Any other neurodivergence? Okay, cool. Whatever. Let's see those thumbs. I watched this today. It was going to be a down for me, but I watched it today and I'm like, actually, this is kind of endearing. Odo's relationship with Loxana is delightful. And I know it's fake, but I want someone to love me like that.
Episode 21. Sorry, I tried to hold it together. And then I lost it. Episode 21, For the Cause. Starfleet security warns Sisko that a Maquis smuggler is aboard Deep Space Nine. And it may be his girlfriend, Cassidy Yates. Dun, dun, dun.
I love the way it may be his girlfriend.
It may be his girlfriend. That's what he gets for dating a woman. Anyway. Blame women.
Wait. I'm so sorry. I want to go back real quick. I remember what I wanted to say. So sorry. This is my own pet peeve that I'm breaching. So I'm going to apologize specifically to Ken and Krista, whom I scold for doing this. My apologies. I'm eating crow. But the Muse had a beautiful moment with Loxana that I did want to talk about. Her emotional intelligence is something that at various points in my life I wish I had. Like, she's over the top, she's fun, but when she's in Oda's office at the end and she's like, no, I need to leave because I'm in love with you and I could stay and try to make you love me, but you never will. And then I'm going to end up resenting you. I watched that today and I'm like, damn, if I had that kind of emotional intelligence, like when I lived in Phoenix, there's more than one boy, unfortunately, that I had very strong feelings for who did not share them. And it's just like, well, maybe, like, no, never. Emotional intelligent, Loxana Troy for the win. Apologies. I thought Majel deserved that credit for her acting.
And it may be his girlfriend, Cassidy. Thoughts about For the Cause?
Who has thoughts on For the Cause? Going off the rails. It's my fault.
Maybe his
His
girlfriend.
girlfriend.
Actually, so Stan, I'll stay late and we'll record just me saying that, and you can use
Yes.
that as a new video interlude.
Yes.
Oh Lord!
Does
I'll
anybody
never
have
be able to do
thoughts
it the way
on
I did it
For
the
the
first time.
Cause? Or we could just vote.
Like we took Cassidy and made her like 3.5 dimensional. I kind of loved that aspect of it. I loved her getting caught. I loved her explaining why she did it. I loved her basically not being apologetic, except for the fact that she hurt Cisco's feelings.
Yes.
But she was basically like, I saw a thing and it needed to be done, and I thought it was right, and I did it. Suck it.
Penny Johnson is so good. She's so good in this episode. Her character is so interesting and so refreshing in Star Trek. Joanne, it's just because
That's
she's
jealousy,
Cisco.
Joanne. That is
it's because
pure, unadulterated
It is.
jealousy. We know you love Avery.
I think she is such an interesting counterpoint to Cisco, in that she is a person who could very easily a character that could be written, and a person who could very easily be kind of bent to the will of someone who is like Cisco. But her kind of doing her own thing and just kind of being the person she is so interesting. And I don't know, it was just really, really, it was better than I remember it being. Yeah, it was good. Good.
In defense of Joanne has already stated on a previous episode that she is a big fan of Dr. Claire Finn. So she's not a Penny Johnson hater. She just doesn't like Cassidy Yates.
That's fair. Oh.
Oh, ouch. Ouch. That burns, Joanne. That
Any other thoughts on For the Cause before we vote? All right, let's see those thumbs.
It's it up. Ooh, accidentally minimized the screen. I don't know why you all needed to know that. Episode 22? Yes. Episode 22, To the Death. 23. Cisco and his What? Are we at 23 already?
I have it as 23.
It depends on how you count. Anyway.
It's 1 and 2. Sorry.
Episode 4 from the end. Cisco and his Defiant crew form a precarious alliance with the Jem'Hadar in order to stop Jem'Hadar renegades from restoring an ancient, spoiler alert, Iconian gateway. I loved it the first time, and then in subsequent rewatches have just sort of been like, it loses something when you know what's going to happen. What do you guys think?
It's the best cold open. Seeing that pylon fucked up is like, you're
not wrong.
In fact, it was a. This is the introduction of Wayoon.
Yeah.
It is that, yeah.
I have to look again at the cold open, because I swear the best cold open is still Tomorrow Was Yesterday.
I wouldn't know.
On that one. Yeah, I know you wouldn't know.
I've seen it once, and that's enough. Any thoughts on To the Death? Let's vote.
Sideways.
Sideways. You guys are giving this season so much diversity. Episode 20-something. The Quickening. Bashir combats pessimism and fear while trying to cure a fatal genetic disease the Jem'Hadar inflicted on a Gamma Quadrant planet 200 years ago. Stan,
Let's start with Krista.
I don't really have anything to say about this one. I think the name of it is interesting. They seem sort of fixated with pregnancies in this season and weird ways of dealing with them. It's kind of a showcase for Bashir. And I like that he is not willing to give up, but it's also a nice contrast to the more popular procedure there, which is to just kind of give them a respectful death, give them the euthanasia that they ask for. And for me, it resonates because, you know, I have people that have died in my family from dementia and Alzheimer's. And if they had been lucid at the end, they would have opted out. And I think that there's a level of respect there. And I think that the medicine can't necessarily solve everything. I think, again, isn't this the one where this disease, this quickening problem that they have is from the Dominion? Is that, or from the prophets? So
Dominion.
So this is, again, you know, additional problems, more fear mongering, and it builds more of that myth, rounds that out a little bit more. But really, it's kind of a medical procedural, and it's a crisis of conscience, and the ethical quagmire, and so it was interesting. Not the best, but it was interesting. I sort of, for all of season 4, I kind of want to ask, like, who touched you at space camp in the summertime from season 3 to season 4? It's so different. Season 3 was bangers. Every single one was boom. And this one seemed like it was really trying to showcase the insertion of Worf. And everything sort of fell apart around it, in my opinion. Everything sort of got short shrift around it. Confirmed for me that the reason why Keiko's baby has to be in Kira is because Nana Visitor was actually pregnant in real life, and that's how they handled it. Okay, because
Wrong episode though. We're not there yet, Krista. How dare you?
Next episode.
Well, I didn't spoil it for. All right.
Viewers, we're striking that from the record. Forget that you heard that.
It's fine.
I know a lot of women that would trade room and board for somebody to have carry and give birth to their baby.
I love the quickening. It's not an episode that I rewatch much because it is very depressing. But it's always a fascinating episode to me because it's one of the doctor doctoring. He's not a creep in this episode. He's an arrogant fuck in this episode. Like, I think Bashir is probably the most flawed character in this show. And this is a great episode of him being confronted with his bullshit and having to get past it. Like, he's kind of called out on his arrogance, but at his core, he cares and he stays to do something. So I love a humbling of Bashir. We mentioned a few weeks ago the Dominion being an allegory to Christianity or religion in general. And yeah, some religions have done some fucked up shit to various cultures. And seeing that play out here.
What do you mean? No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
Like, oh, let's go. No, let's not.
Tune in next week when we talk about what's wrong with religion. No, I'm kidding.
Oh goodness. We're trying to keep these under 2 hours. Remember, this is not an episode I come back to a lot because it is depressing, but it is a great episode. So, let's see those thumbs. The quickening.
Episode 24 or 25. Body parts. When Quark is diagnosed with a fatal disease, he auctions his remains in order to pay his debts, and then finds out the doctor was wrong.
Listen, the subplot that Krista just spoiled for everybody is extra funny when you consider the title of this episode is Body Parts.
It was.
Because in a way, fetus is a body part for a little bit.
Krista's tragic 100-second spoiler
literally, I'm the one who's not watched the whole fucking series, and I'm the one spoiling shit. Suck a bag of fucking dicks.
Sign me up.
Yes, Nana was pregnant, and rather than have her hold a phaser rifle or be behind a whatever to hide it, they give her another woman's baby, which is great.
And the episode follows Luoxana, who is now pregnant, but she just had, like Vashti disease, or I don't even know what the fuck it was called, and it was supposed to be like menopause, and apparently that father doesn't actually have to take care of that kid. I don't even they have some issues with pregnancy, is what I'm saying. Like, who touched you in summer camp?
And also, where is Deanna's stepbrother, half brother?
We don't talk about it with outsiders.
All right, but body parts. The Ferengi, Quark thinks he's dying. He has to vacuum desiccate himself. Once he does, Brunt sets up a contract to buy all of his discs, and oh no, he's not actually going to die. There's some fun stuff with Garrick in this. Will's having a moment, so let's turn it over to Will and share your thoughts.
I don't remember this one. I'm reading the description. I'm a pass. I don't remember this one at all.
You're a very gesticulating reader.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I was chopping my hands because I was like, "What is happening in this?"
I was like, "Oh, he has something to say."
No, I don't. I have nothing. No. It's weird. I always thought the pregnancy thing was really weird. It's interesting how it develops Kira's relationships later. But yeah, I honestly don't remember this, so I guess that's a problem.
It's one of the few where the B plot is actually more interesting than the A plot. Like the Quark thing is like interesting, but like I was more interested in the pregnancy situation. And also, just spoiler alert for my vote. My vote is very much colored by the fact that Nana was so grateful that they wrote this in for her. Because she assumed in 1996 when she showed up and said, guys, one of your lead actors playing a single character for whom you have no intentions of giving a child is pregnant. She assumed she was going to be written out, and that they were just like, oh, we have an idea, and totally came up with this to solve the problem. And she was so grateful. Makes me extra happy because I love her.
Yeah. So let's see those thumbs, body part. Let's see those body parts for body parts.
It's a sideways body part. Never mind. I'm just gonna stop.
Land the ship.
Landing with broken link, which is not the best place to land. Spoiler alert. Odo is forced to return to his homeworld to be judged for killing another changeling. Semicolon with Andrew Robinson as Garrick. I didn't write this. I just read what's on the screen. So yeah, Odo returns to face trial after experiencing some sort of horrible medical emergency in Garrick's shop. Gets to the homeworld and is subsequently turned into a solid as punishment for quote unquote killing a changeling last season. I put killing in quotes because he didn't really have a lot of options. It was sort of a self-defense situation, but whatever.
Right?
Who am I?
Quick thoughts.
That's not actually what they did. Odo felt like it was acceptable for him to bounce between both worlds. He felt a part of them, but didn't agree with them. So he didn't want to become one with them. He's with the solids. He feels some kinship to the solids. They blame it on Kira, and he likes the independence of that. I think what they did was a punishment for not returning. I don't necessarily believe that it has anything to do with the fact that he was the first to harm a changeling. I don't believe that that's true. I think that they punished him because he wouldn't come back. I think that they enjoy control, and they enjoy absolute control even better. And they cannot have it out there that there is a renegade changeling, that if they're going to continue going forward with this, total domination, they can't have one within their own ranks, one within their own species, refusing to participate as side by side with them.
Yeah.
So they
not the Christians. I mean, the Dominion.
They eliminated the problem. And also, my mother used to make a cake that looked a lot like when Odo melts, like when there was.
Wow! Drag your mother. Drag her.
I see it. I'm like, God, I love that cake.
Will, what were your thoughts on this episode?
I agree with Krista that it felt like this was punishment for siding with the Federation and with the Solids and not with the Link. It's a very interesting episode. I also love the kind of side plot with Garrick about needing to find where Tane is, and if there was people that survived the attack on Cardet. The kind of callbacks to previous episodes is really interesting, because it does kind of remind us that some of these episodes are going to be very consequential later. So it is kind of a nice callback for that. No, I think it's an interesting episode. What are the changelings doing where they can just like punish you from across the galaxy? Like it's not like
I think this is foreshadowing to what we see in season 7. And I don't want to say more for
no, for sure.
But like we saw in this season, they do have changelings everywhere.
Yeah, so that's true. So they might have been closer by. I don't know. I thought it was a very interesting episode. It's a good development for Odo, who's kind of has to feel consequence for the actions and decisions he's made against his people, and how he views them as the correct thing, and how that puts him at odds with kind of the people he didn't know he had or had wished he had. So I thought it was great. It's a wonderfully acted by Rene Auberginois as well. I thought he did a really wonderful performance.
All right, we are at time, so let's see those thumbs for Broken Link.
But okay, I just want to say this was season 4 was interesting in the sense that I remember X-Files had what they called mythology episodes, right? They had a bunch of episodes that meant nothing, and then they had the mythology episodes. So I think Deep Space Nine had this kind of situation with this season. This was clearly a mythology episode. It definitely moved the Dominion War forward. Also, the idea of characters losing their powers goes all the way back to Bewitched, right? So even before that. So this is Odo losing his powers and having to face that off. I think it was a good season finale, and it's set up for much deeper stuff coming up. Deep Space Niner stuff coming up. So
that is season 4. Trevor, give us the tally.
Scoring at 16 ups, 8 sideways, 2 down. So overall, a pretty darn good season. TOS alerts, there were 2. There was 1 problematic gay alert. There were no Bev alerts. 100 bonus points to Joanne for referencing Sirach's hotness. 1,200 bonus points to Joel for an attention Bajoran workers callback. Another 10,000 bonus points to Joanne for pointing out poignant and prophetic prophet problems for Penny Johnson-Gerald.
Yes.
That's all I got.
All right, y'all. The Worfining, it happened. We have to accept it. Season 4, fun season. We'll be back at the same time next week, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, talking about season 5, which has my 2 favorite episodes of the series in it. So get excited. And another quick programming note, now that we don't have official confirmation, but it's kind of been spoiled, kind of not. It looks like Discovery season 5 is coming starting April 4th. Pending official confirmation, a programming note, we are going to start March 7th, talking about the seasons of Discovery. So each of the first 4 seasons, week by week, until the new season starts. So get excited for that. Thank you all for joining us in the chat. We love to have you. Always fun. Thank you all very much. Live long and prosper.